Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live webinar in partnership with the University College Dublin. I am Laura from Duxbury, and it's my pleasure to moderate this webinar today with our speakers and students from UCD. I see that more participants are joining. So again, hello, everyone, and thanks for joining this webinar in partnership with UCD today. I'm glad to be here with Richard Murphy, admission manager at UCD, and some students, and who will tell us about the school's master programs. If you have any questions during our webinar, please feel free to drop them into the Q&A box at any time, and we will take them in the last part of our event. And also, after the event, you are going to receive an email with the link of the recording to the event, so you can rewatch it in case you missed some parts. And I now leave the floor to Richard, and welcome, and thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Ilaria. And as Ilaria said, my name is Richard Murphy, and I'm one of the admissions managers here in UCD, University College Dublin, Michael Smurfit Graduate Business School. It's a long name, but basically University College Dublin is Ireland's largest university. And what this presentation is about today is just the postgraduate business school. And as you can see, the title of the presentation is called Why International Students Are Choosing Ireland's Leading Business Schools. So hopefully you'll learn a lot from today's session. Just to quickly give you a brief agenda. So first up will be myself with this presentation. We're then going to be joined by three students who you can probably see on your screen right now. We have Moses, Kira, and Manvi. And these three students are excellent students, also student ambassadors, and they're very helpful. And they are going to be joining us today on a about 20-minute probably student panel presentation where we will talk to these students, and you can have a chance to put questions into the chat box, and we'll pose those questions to the students as well. But we'll also then at the very end have a Q&A session. So as Ilaria said, please feel free all the way throughout this presentation to drop your questions into the Q&A. And we have two members of our staff who are operating the Q&A session anyway as well. So keep your questions coming, and that's what it's about. It's about a nice bit of interactivity. So thanks to the guys, and I'll just kick on with this presentation now. So you might already know a little bit about UCD or about the business school in detail, but just to say that we are what's known as Triple Crown accredited, and that means we're accredited by the international bodies, which are the AACSB, AMBA, and EQUIS, which basically means we're worldwide recognized and internationally recognized programs. And only 1% of business schools around the world have this Triple Crown accreditation, but UCD as a whole is also ranked in the top 1% of universities. So you know that if you come to UCD Smurfit, you are getting a very, very prestigious school. And it's, as we mentioned there, Ireland's top ranked business school, but we're also one of the top ranked schools in the world. And just as a quick note, which would be quite of interest, that 60% of our students are international students that on general come from an average of 60 different nationalities. So it's quite an international school, but we still have a strong Irish cohort. So you get a strong Irish culture and networking opportunities. So moving on to the next slide, why are we ranked, or who we ranked with? So we're ranked with Financial Times and The Economist, which are generally the two most prestigious ranking systems to use, and we're always generally in the top 50 rankings. Currently, our SEMS International Management Program is ranked 8th in the world by Financial Times, so it's generally always in the top 10, and a highly prestigious program. We have many other programs as well that are ranked by these ranking institutions, such as supply chain management, business analytics, marketing, and our finance programs as well, which generally are always in the top 40 in the world. So you know, coming here, you're going to get a very, very good, highly ranked program. So for those, again, who might not know Dublin or Ireland, as you see here on the right-hand side is we have a map of Ireland. Where we are is on the very east coast, which is where Dublin, the capital city, is. Now, this is a very crudely drawn map by me, done only a few minutes ago, but you can see the red blob, if you like, is the Dublin city centre. And that is that's known as, I suppose, as I said, the city centre where you have a lot of different employers that are based there. But Dublin is small. So if you see there that big yellow ring road, anything within that to the city centre is generally about 20 minutes. So it's not very far away. But if you see that blue mark there, that is the whole size of the UCD main campus. And that just shows you the size of UCD. So as I mentioned, it's the largest and top ranked university in Ireland, and it has about 34,000 students. Now, us in Smurfit, we have our own slightly separate campus. As you can see, there's that little yellow mark just down to the right of that blue mark. And that's where the Smurfit Business School campus is. Again, it's only about 20 minutes into the city centre, lots of public transport opportunities, and we're only about 8 minutes from the main campus as well. So you have all the massive facilities that you'd expect in a big university, as well as our own here in UCD Smurfit. And what it means is that you're in good company. You're only with approximately 1,300 of our top business school students from around the world. So it's a very unique campus, and we'll talk to the students more about that as to what they feel it's like studying here. Just a quick note on Ireland, because obviously when you choose somewhere to study for your master's, you cannot separate the economy and the job prospects within that country to the school as well. And that's where Ireland is in very good reputation, has a very positive outlook at the moment. And so we are Europe's fastest growing economy 5 years in a row, which is certainly quite phenomenal achievement for considering the size of this nation. But we have about 7.5% growth last year, 16.1% growth from 2021, and we were the only European country of growth during the pandemic in 2020. So even with all those external things and things like the war in Europe and etc., other many other macro environments impinging on our economy, we still are producing some of the highest growth figures. And generally speaking, it's 3 times higher growth rate than the EU average. In fact, this year alone in the first quarter, the Irish economy was the single economy that kept the whole of the Eurozone dropping into stagnation. So that was, again, another really positive point for the Irish economy. But that also equates to jobs. And if you look at the unemployment figure, which has dropped to 4% already, that's effectively Ireland's full employment figure. You literally cannot get more people employed in Ireland. And what we're experiencing is labour shortages already across many sectors. So all these statistics are quite new. The RSI report done in October 2020, but also just recently with some statistics from 2 weeks ago. So you can check this stuff out, but it's really positive. You probably know as well that Ireland has a reputation for the Silicon Valley of Europe. So Dublin is home to most of the major European headquarters for the US tech companies, which, as you probably are aware of, have had a bit of a downward turn in the last couple of months. But the key word there is tech, and tech isn't just things like social media tech, such as Meta or Google. Ireland is also home to the world's leading medtech and pharma tech, agri-tech, biotech companies. And just a note on that, for example, you had Pfizer, who announced a further 1.2 billion investment in Ireland just last December. So again, tech isn't just to do with those companies that you probably hear of, but even at that, the net gain of employment in Ireland with those companies such as Meta, Google, Twitter, etc., was over 30,000 plus year on year from the year before. So it still shows you that they are still hiring, and it's a very positive outlook in Ireland, mostly due to the fact that we're the European headquarters. And with that becomes networking opportunities. So there's an expression called 7 degrees of separation, which is where 2 people in the world who don't know each other at all are separated by 7 different degrees of separation, 7 different people. In Ireland, that's down to 2. That's the way it works in Ireland. We're a small country of only about 5 million people. Dublin has a population of 1.5. And what does that mean? It means that you get to meet people. If you want to talk to someone, for example, like this, like the adjunct professor Martin Shanahan, who is one of our top professors here in Smurfit, he welcomed the CEO of Apple to Tim Cook, beg your pardon, to Dublin recently. We have strong connections with, for example, Apple and all of the other major companies, international companies that you'd expect. We also have an active alumni network, which has currently, I think, about 105,000 business alumni around the globe. So that, again, is active. So that's not just those who've left UCD or Smurfit, it's those who are actually currently active on our platforms and who do events in different chapters around the world. So again, it's a pretty unique club that you get to join when you join Smurfit. Some of our top employers, this is a really, to be honest, I'm always reluctant using this slide because it just shows just some employers that we use. And you see there's a bit of a strong vibe there with regards to tech and consulting, but this is just a tiny amount. And what I always recommend that you do, if you're thinking seriously about coming to Smurfit, go onto LinkedIn and just have a look to see where our students are actually working. It's one of the best tools you can use. Part of that is also down to our careers team. So here in Smurfit, we have a dedicated careers team. We actually have 5 employees in our careers team in Smurfit alone. We also have a dedicated team that are on the main UCD campus as well. And in fact, you see a picture there of the O'Reilly Hall. That's one of our big events and conference centers in UCD. And you'll see there's a sign for recruitment fair. So as a UCD student, which is what you would be, you get to have 2 careers fairs on the main campus and at least 2 career fairs just for Smurfit students here in this UCD Smurfit campus. And we always get a oversubscription of top multinational companies that want to come to meet you and hopefully offer you jobs. And that's what it's about. So we have really high statistics that from our first careers fair in October in Smurfit, that about 60% of the attendees to that are offered a job for the following year. So it's a pretty impressive statistic. And again, our careers team are there to help you all throughout the year, but they actually contact you before you even start as a student. And that's where your journey with the careers team ultimately starts and helps you get the most out of doing your master's. One other key reason why our employment statistics, which I'll just talk about in a second, are so strong is because what we try to do is we teach slightly differently, and we want to try to develop skills that employers want. So we have a dialogue with employers. And for example, in the fast moving dynamic world that we're in at the moment with lots of change and disruption, it's really important that us as a business school listen to what the employers want. So what they want are things such as people who appreciate different cultures due to the multinational change in the employment market. And again, because most of people here will be going to work for big multinational companies with different branches across the world, it's important that we are able to do this. We also teach very critically, or get you to learn critically. So in other words, it's not about the standard way of teaching where we would have a big lecture hall and you'd have hundreds of students in that lecture hall and we're told to do an exam at the end. It's a very, very different way. It's much more practical, and it's for you to be able to develop relationships and network with your team, with your course friends or your course students, and also then for those who are actually working in the industry. So it's about learning critically and practically. And the last thing as well is we develop leaders. And again, I'll touch on that in a second, that we actually have a specific program that I highly recommend with regards to leadership, but that's what Smurfit is about. It's about developing leaders. So all this is down to engagement and employability. And what does this give you? This gives us then the #1 graduate employability title. We've had this as the #1 in Ireland for the last 5 years in a row. So 2018, 19, 2021, and 2022. So it's a pretty phenomenal statistic. In fact, I think it's the first time that any university has held this for 5 years in a row. The Smurfit average employment rate is 96%. So again, if you look at averages across other top business schools, top 50 business schools, you'll see those could be anything from 70 to 80%, and Smurfit's in the mid-90s. So we're pretty proud of that figure. And again, each course will have slightly different, but that's this overall total for Smurfit. Just a quick touch on sustainability, because it is a topic that comes up a lot as well. We have 2 courses that are specifically on this topic, which is renewable energy and environmental finance. It's been a world's first course. We were running this program nearly 10 years ago now at this stage, and we have some of the world's leading experts in this teaching on this program. And they still have connections with the program now as well as and so it's a really, really important topic right now, as we know, particularly in Europe, but all around the world, and it's becoming very, very popular. So if you think about a finance program, this is one that I might steer you towards. We also have a sustainable supply chain, which I think one thing the pandemic and many other macro environments that have affected supply chains, such as a tanker blocking the canal for a short period of time, just shows you the delicate nature of supply chains and how that affects everything that we do, both from a consumer, but also from a business point of view. And so this is what it's about. It's about teaching sustainability, but not just sustainability in the green way, but also sustainability from a business perspective. But on the green side of things, we have a campus initiative, we have biodiversity, waste reductions, we have leading researchers in sustainable fashion chain, by the way, greenwashing detections. There's a really lot of interesting things that are put into our curriculum, as well as also hosting the Earth Institute and other really important leading research in environment protection and moving towards the electrification of transport and things like this. So UCD is a very pioneering university in this. And again, how does that give us? It gives us a top 25 global title in sustainability. So we have environmental impacts, QS rankings, and we are 22nd currently in the Times Higher Education Impact Rankings. So again, of all the universities in the world, this shows you how I think UCD are leading the way. Smurfit experience. So just a quick touch on two things I mentioned earlier. There's a lot in this particular slide, so don't worry too much about reading all of the details. But on the left-hand side, you have the Global Leadership Program. Now, this was developed with our MBA and brought down from our MBA to all of our MSc students. It's a no extra fee, it's no extra credit, but what it is a little bit of extra work to develop leadership skills, workplace skills, and have mentorship and careers coaching and planning. So ultimately what you do, you just do extra things. You organize events, you could become a student ambassador, you work with the community, you would network with leaders in businesses. So this is something that is open to everybody, and I highly recommend that you do. It's one of the added points of why you would come here to Smurfit, and employers love this, but it's not just about employers, it's about your own personal development. So again, something that I would highly recommend. On the right hand side, there's intercultural development program. It's again something that I mentioned earlier on with regards to employers love to see people who have as I said, their intercultural competence, and you can see there's a lot of different bubbles around that as to what makes up this kind of overall sphere. But basically it's about being culturally aware. And again, that's another program that we offer, which separates us from a lot of other top schools. Here again is an overview of why you should do a UC Smurfit Masters. I'm probably mentioned a lot of these things already, but just really quickly, if you look at those things, so the key stats there: employability 96%, starting salaries 1 in 10 over 80,000. We have 102, which is really about 105,000 at this particular point in alumni, and 86% of students prefer a candidate with a master's, and that's pretty obvious, but sometimes you could be in a situation where you're toying up between doing a master's or maybe an internship for a year. Maybe you've had enough of university life for 4 years once you've done your undergrad and you want a break. Well, ultimately, this is why you should end up doing a master's straight away. Get it on your belts, and then it opens up a world of opportunity. So again, this is up on our website, so I won't go into this too much right now. A lot of the points I'm already talking to you about throughout this presentation. This is also an interesting one because I use this statistic a lot, but it tends to come up a lot in our research at 60%. And 60% of our students come from non-business backgrounds, believe it or not. So again, we have students that come from STEM, social science, medicine, engineering, etc. And they would come to Smurfit to do a either conversion business type masters or to do something quite specific. So again, like supply chain, for example, would attract a lot of people who come from engineering backgrounds. We have people from all backgrounds who want to do marketing, and they might want to do that within the sphere that they've come from. So it's a really interesting school to be part of, to know that you as a potentially non-business graduate are probably going to be in more company of your own fellow non-business students than you would if you come from a business background. And one of the key things we do there, as I mentioned already, is focus on leadership development. So again, it's not necessarily about trying to give you transfer skills, it's about leadership. So it's working on the skills that you might already be bringing from other disciplines. For international students, we also have an excellent support service team. So we actually have 5 global centers, with the 6th one opening up soon, run by our UCD global team. That's part of the whole university. So we have centers, for example, in the United States, in India, in Asia, in Africa, and we'll have one in Europe soon. So it's a really phenomenal to have so many different centers and different ways you can meet people individually, directly, or even remotely on Zoom. We have here in Smurfit an international student liaison manager. We also have a student advisor and an international cultural development officer. So there's a team of people here whose job it is to literally help. We use this term internally called onboarding, which is really a term to try to get you from, say, an accepted student from us in admissions to actually being a student here on campus successfully, and then also supporting you throughout your time here as well. And for those who are coming from a country that requires a visa, here Ireland were one of the first countries to pioneer the 2-year stay back visa, and that currently is operating well here as well. So it's another good point as to why you might want to come to study in Ireland. So we have a large amount of master's programs. Currently, there's about 24. So I'm not going to go into them all now because it can take a long time, but let's just touch really quickly on some of the subject areas. So there's management, like the SENS International Management I mentioned. There's data courses, there's innovation programs, and finance and marketing. And obviously what I would suggest is to look at the whole list of programs that we have on our website. But just to touch on some that are popular with international students, as I mentioned, our international management program. Follow closely, you probably see just very small there, IB, which is international business. And international business is effectively an international management program, but we can't call it that because we have our SEMS program. And Moses, one of our current students on this webinar tonight, is actually doing that program, so it's useful to have him. We also have strategic management programs, management consultancy, digital innovation, 1 or 5 different finance programs. And we also have part-time programs, for example, such as our project management, which is our first program that you can actually study remotely and online. So again, just something that's obviously why it's an interest to international students. And we can have a chat more about those courses in the Q&A if you have any specific questions. So ultimately, what are some of the key differences between Ireland and the rest of the world? And this is what our current students tell us. It's not what we tell you guys. This is what the feedback we get. And ultimately, as I already mentioned, it's a practical teaching environment. So that is one of the key things I think you'll find coming here as an international student. It's very different. There's not so much of an emphasis put on exams and project work, or things like hard hitting things. For example, you don't need to do a thesis. What we do is we do a research project, or you can do an internship instead. So I think all that lends itself to a very practical way of teaching and learning, which is why you will ultimately develop those skills and go into the workplace in a much more smoother transition. We also have a 1-year master's structure, which I know for many countries across the world, there are 2-year masters, but ours are 1-year-long master's programs, as I already mentioned, extremely prestigious, highly accredited and recognized across the world. I'll touch on the industry involvement. As I mentioned, we do teaching, we have teachers or lecturers that come from industry that are working with industry at the moment. We have field trips that go out to these kind of companies such as Google, etc. So it's a really practical environment again. And the fees, obviously there are fees, but some research that we did recently shows that we have fees that are on average 72% lower than the other top 50 business schools. So just an interesting point. So yes, there are fees, of course, but we generally find that they are better value for the rankings that we have. There are scholarships, but I would always say, and this is one thing that probably comes up in the Q&A anyway, that you should not rely on getting a scholarship to fund your program here, but obviously if you can, then treat it as a bonus. So last slide before we go to the student panel. This is contact details for the admissions team here in Smurfit. So smurfit.admissions@ucd.ie and smurfitschool.ie is our website. So at this time of the year, we are finding ourselves very close to closing our applications for many of our programs. So there are some places still available. So if you are interested, I would encourage you to apply as soon as you can. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to introduce the panel, the student panel with us today. So I'd ask that Moses, Kira and Manvi might turn on the cameras. Hi guys, how are you? I might just do a quick introduction one by one, and then we might open it up to maybe some of the Q&A, or I'll have some questions. So maybe just Moses, you're top left of my screen. Moses, do you want to tell us your name and what you're studying?
Hi everyone, thanks Richard for having me. My name is Moses and I'm currently studying international business and master's degree here at UCD.
Thanks, Moses. And then I'm also joined by Kira, who's on our marketing practice program. Say hi, Kira.
Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So my name is Kira, as Richard said, and I'm studying marketing practice, which is also known as the marketing development practice.
And lastly is Manvi, who is doing our financial data science program. Hi, Manvi.
Hi. Hello everyone. I'm Manvi this side. I'm currently pursuing financial data science. It's one of the finance programs that the Smurfit offers. It's a pretty good program.
Right. Well, Manvi, just because you're still talking, how about we go with you first, Manvi? I know there's a lot of participants who are watching today that are coming from all around the world. Manvi, maybe you tell us the reasons to why you chose Ireland and Smurfit.
Oh, well, I love the Irish culture, to be honest. And I'm like, one of the things that I love about the country is the people. They're so homely, they're so kind. Like, you would be randomly on the streets and they would like start a chat with you, which is so rare in other parts of the world. And coming to Smurfit, I think I wanted a program which is more practical rather than theoretical. And I didn't want to do a dissertation in the final trimester. So Smurfit had that for me, and I wanted to do a program which is a combination of finance and data as well. And I don't think till now any other university in Ireland offers that. So yeah.
It's one of our newer programs, all right, Manvi, exactly. So it's kind of again, the point that I made in our presentation, that we listened to employers, and this is one of the reasons why, is because they were looking for us to run a course like this, because there was not many, or if any, of these types of programs in Ireland, and being the top business school then as well, that's why your course came about, really. And Manvi, you make a good point as well in regards to sort of friendliness and safety. I suppose obviously it's easy for me and maybe Kira, who is also Irish, to sort of say that it's something maybe we take for granted being locals here, but for example, it was published by the OECD that Ireland is the second safest country in the world, and I think something like the third highest on the happiness index. And I hope that's something that you see every day, Manvi, as you walk around. You see smiles on our faces. Indeed. Is that right?
Indeed, and it's so lovely to see them. Like,
that's great. I'm very happy to hear that, Manvi. Moses, I might just move on to you just quickly. I know we've talked before many times, Moses, you've been on a lot of our webinars, but for anyone who hasn't seen your face before, can you tell us why you maybe chose Smurfit and Dublin in Ireland?
Well, first off, I was looking across Europe for a degree abroad, and coming out from Germany, we did had a few options, but to me at least, Ireland was kind of undiscovered, and I wanted to try something new, try to see a new country, and Ireland just came across. And basically also what Manvi mentioned, hearing that they're so open-hearted, friendly, and so welcoming, and that's what I experienced. And on top of that, UCD is being a great university across Europe, has an outstanding reputation. So it was basically a no-brainer for me to come, at least to apply the first part, so to speak. And so I chose international business because I wanted to have a program which was more broad, more that gives you a general idea, and also in depth of what I have already had in my previous degree. So overall, I'm very happy and proud to be here, and having a very nice and very fruitful journey so far.
Great to hear, Moses. And Kira, I might just quickly turn to you. Pretty much the same question, but will you be slightly different, right, Kira? Because you probably knew about Smurfit and the reputation. So maybe what was it attracted you to doing a program here?
Yeah, definitely. So I did my undergrad in UCD as well, so I was very familiar with Smurfit. but I studied Spanish at my undergrad, so I did look at going to Spain to do my master's. But what really drew me to Smurfit was my course is very practical, but the practical element of Smurfit in general and the industry connections, because I'm still trying to figure out my career path for after my master's. And I think Smurfit really helps you do that with the industry connections they have. I think if you want to explore something while in Smurfit, there'll be someone there that can refer you on to someone who can help you within that industry and give you guidance, which is so important.
Right, exactly. Thanks, Kara. So again, like your point there really is just that kind of that connection, that networking opportunities, right, Kira? Can I just ask, have you attended sort of, you know, I know with your course, you obviously reach out and you deal with a lot with employers anyway, but have you attended careers events or have you had kind of a lot of career opportunities?
Yeah, definitely. So I've attended the careers fairs both on the UCD main campus and on the Smurfit campus. And I made great connections there, and like they gave me great ideas of jobs that I didn't realize that actually existed, or like employers that were hiring. And then more so, I know like from certain academic staff that have industry connections, that when I approached them and like registered my interest in their particular career field or their industry, that they can then put you in touch with other people for jobs. So definitely through the events, but also through the academic staff in Smurfit. It's great.
Brilliant. And I love that kind of thing that you point out, that there is this kind of atmosphere, and this is what our students, what you guys are, tell us, is that there is a very nice connection and kind of like you're not a number here. Manvi, would you agree with that? I mean, that you're not kind of a number in UCD, even though like some of the class sizes can be you know, reasonably large and others can be quite small, but I mean, generally speaking, that the feedback we get from a lot of our students is that there's a lot of one-to-one and you can get in contact with the people you need to when you need to. Would you agree with that, Manvi?
Yeah, totally. I think my class size is quite small. So like as compared to other finance courses, we're just a bunch of 31 students. So we have good interactions with the professor even during lectures. Like we can put up things that we want to discuss, or like anything that's relevant to the topic that's being taught. So I completely agree with that. And yeah, it's really good to have that approach towards making connections and everything.
And maybe how have you found the social life and sort of the student life here? And you know, let's not go into too much detail, but have you had a good fun, and have you made like good friends and networks?
Oh yeah, totally. Like I've been on the Belfield campus. Like I got an accommodation on campus, which is like I would recommend everyone to have that. It's such a lovely campus, full of life and everything. And yeah, even on Smurfit, I've made some great connections through the programs, through GLP, and being a student ambassador through the lunches that we have and everything. It's a great experience to be in. Like I really would like everybody to be here. Like,
And Manvi, just because you mentioned the GLP, for those who might not be aware of GLP, again, as I mentioned in the presentation, it's called the Global Leadership Program. Manvi, do you want to maybe just tell us briefly what you think of it as a student, and what maybe do you feel that it is a lot of extra work, or is it something that you can manage quite well?
no, I don't think, like I've always been someone who doesn't want to be into studies, you know, like I want to have my hands filled with stuff like all around and have some extracurriculars on mind. So I always wanted to be a part of such activities, and I think GLP is such a great source to be involved in such stuff. So we have the workplace pillar and career pillar there, which helps us to get ready for the job opportunities that might come up and be ready for the workplace. And I don't think it's too much to take in. I really think everybody should experience that as well, and to grow as a professional, and as a person as well. So
That's great.
yeah.
It's great to hear, and it's really good to know that you're doing it. And I'm sure employers are going to love seeing that on your CV, Manvi. Moses, we'll come back to you again. Here's a general question, right, Moses? What's been your most favorite thing about Smurfit so far?
Well, so far, I mean, it's basically the collaborative work with my peers. Obviously, we in Germany, we had only one kind of assessment, which is 100% exam. And that leaves you more or less on your own. But having here being, having hands-on mentality, having projects that you can work with your peers, that is what I very, very much cherish. And even up to the last moment when we were having our last brain cells burn because we wanted to have this particular project done, it is very challenging somehow, but also very rewarding because we do came up with great ideas. And this is something that also students, prospects should look forward to, because I think that you will learn a lot. Even though it's time consuming, but I very, very appreciated the time that I had to spend with my peers so far, and just come up with great ideas and presenting them at the end. Also, working on papers that we didn't do in Germany back then, but here it's an usual assessment, and I really appreciated that. And besides that, I mean, you create moments basically out of the academic realm, and students here are very cliquey because we do have all the same background more or less, and we share this same situation. We have that in common, and that brings us to very memorable moments, and coming together as one is something that I also really appreciate.
All right, good. So you kind of highlighted there, Moses, didn't you? The practical nature, right? And I think actually that's something, because you're studying international business and it's a very popular program. And one of the key things we get asked a lot in admissions is, well, how is it practical compared to, say, another course? And maybe can you give a couple of examples as to the practical nature more than, say, the traditional, academic way?
Of course. I mean, one of the prime examples would be global marketing, what you have in the first trimester. And as opposed to others, it's basically what people know was basically that you learn theory and then apply it on somewhere. But this was very enhanced, which means that you have different tasks on a weekly basis. For example, you had to come up with an YouTube ads, with the consultancy project, with the CEO project that you have, that has been assessed on a weekly basis, that you have to, come up with an idea, discuss it with your peers, and then decide who is going to be in charge for the next day. So we were a group of 5, and on each week we had to bring our A game, more or less. And that is something very practical. And at the end, we had to finalize it, first of all, in the completion of the ad, also a final report and individual reports as well. So the learning curve was extremely, extremely high. But what I had to put my eye on especially was this weekly assessment and coming up with an idea that we didn't have before and to develop it. And this is something very practical. So this was also very time consuming as well, but we all enjoyed it.
It's great to hear, Moses. And actually kind of touched on something I'm going to ask Kira now about, which is sort of the teamwork and the project stuff, because Kira, in your course, obviously that's predominantly what you do, right? I mean, do you want to tell a little bit about your course and how you find the practical nature of your program?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. So I know, like, from interacting with other master's courses, all the courses in Smurfit are extremely practical, but I suppose mine is a tiny bit different in the sense that we are technically operating as marketing advisors within a marketing agency in UCD, and it's hands-on, so we're getting a year worth of practical experience at the same time as our masters. So I think 60% of our final graduating grade is practical based. So that is working with clients, interacting with clients, doing their projects, interacting with our peers. But then also we get to interact with other marketing masters within Smurfit through our academic subjects. So it's a nice balance of practical with the client and industry side, as well as like with our fellow peers in Smurfit.
That's great. Yeah, and it is a really interesting program, and quite a unique one is this marketing practice program that you do. So it's great to hear how it kind of operates. Actually, Kira, just maybe the final question I might ask each of you on this student panel before we open it up to the general Q&A questions, as I can see quite a few coming in. Kira, have you any word or sentence or a couple of sentences of advice to any prospective students watching today about the general process of coming here?
Yeah, definitely. I think But I know, like, listening to a lot of the webinars and trying to pick what university to go to can be really difficult. But I'm a firm believer, and after living through it the past few months myself, in that whatever you want out of Smurfit, you can definitely get out of that. You can come and you can just do your master's course and get a master's out of it, but you can also come and get fully invested in student life and get to know your academic tutors and professors and make industry connections, as well as like connecting with previous Smurfit alumni. So I definitely think Smurfit is kind of like the world is your oyster. I know that sounds cheesy, but definitely you can get out of it everything that you want to, and you can like professionally and personally develop yourself hugely.
That's fair. I don't think it sounds cheesy at all. It's something that seems to come quite a lot from our current students. So thanks, Keir, for that. And Manvi, I might just go to you next. I mean, the same question really. Have you any advice that you would give to prospective students watching this webinar tonight?
Just that you should be aware of the course that you're entering to. Just like have a good view of the outline and the modules before you enter to, because like I think in Ireland it's pretty easy to switch careers even after you're done with your master's, but then I think everybody should enjoy the program after they have gotten themselves into. So just that, and then don't worry too much about accommodation. You will find something or the other. We have some great staff at Smurfit and Youth Belfield as well. So yeah, I myself remember when I was in the position and I didn't have an accommodation. So you will help me get fun on the Belfield campus. So they have all the facilities to help you. So don't worry about that. Just come up with whatever you think is troubling you, and they're there to help you. So yeah.
It's a lovely message of positivity, Manvi. I love it.
Yeah.
Moses, last word to you on the panel. The same question again. I mean, what advice would you give to, say, yourself this time last year, now that you've been through this process?
Well, yeah, thanks, Richard. Well, basically, it's a mix of both, basically what Kara and Manvi said. But what especially caught my eye is that you should just make the best out of it and utilize whatever UCD can offer you, whether it's GLP, whether it's the mentorship throughout your course, or even the career fairs, just to get in touch with those who are in the university, who are active, and bring yourself in, involve yourself, exchange ideas. I believe this is the best way that you can bring out the best of your opportunities here in Ireland, especially at UCD. And what I would teach my younger self back then, before I enrolled, is just try to spread out as soon as possible. Try to, look up in Facebook pages, try to get in touch through the student ambassadors. Maybe can give you some tips or help you to just have a proper kickoff, but just try early. And especially one last thing is, when you're here, just, try to clear your desk, be prepared, but at the end, enjoy your stay. I mean, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and enjoying student life here.
That's great. Thanks, Moses, and thanks, Kira, and thanks, Manvi. And maybe you might stay with your cameras on, because I'm going to be joined now by my colleague Carol Deering, also from Missions. Hi, Carol.
Hi, everyone. Happy to meet you all.
Carol, you've been looking at some of the Q&A, right? And again, for anyone who's watching right now, please fire in some questions. This is what this last 15-minute session is about. So Carol, I'll hand it over to you now.
Yeah, so there's a lot of very interesting questions coming in. I suppose the main one is around accommodation. So I suppose in admissions, we always advise students to arrive in Ireland as soon as possible. If you can arrive in Ireland by mid-August, it takes the stress out of looking for accommodation. But as you mentioned during the webinar, we have excellent support services here in the Smurfit School. So you'll have your own dedicated international program manager, international liaison officer, Yola Marr, who looks after things like visa queries, information on accommodation. We have a UCD residences department. So we also have a new UCD Global Village. So we don't anticipate to have the same challenges that we had last year with accommodation because of the new Global Village. However, it is advisable, if you can arrive in Ireland mid-August, that would be very beneficial, help you settled into life in Ireland and not be stressed So you've got lots of different, I suppose, options for accommodation. So you can apply for host family accommodation that wasn't open during COVID. It's back on track now, which is great. What we find is a lot of our international students would get together and share and rent private apartments and private houses in the area in Blackrock, because it's a little bit more economical. And then on the main residences website, you know, there's lots of different options. So if you decide that you want to go with student accommodation, you've got Glenamina, which is in our main campus. You also have Blackrock. And I suppose the beauty about you know, staying in our accommodation, on-campus accommodation, you'll have your own private bedroom, your own bathroom, and then you have communal area, kitchen area, and living areas. So there's lots of different packages, lots of different options. So I would advise you all you can actually go in and do a virtual tour of the different accommodation. But I suppose, again, just to reiterate, you know, we took in a lot of Ukrainian refugees last year, and you know, I'll be honest, we did have a few challenges. Having said this, we didn't send any international students home. So the key message is to make sure that you apply early for your accommodation. Make sure you send us all your documents, your English language transcripts, your final academic transcripts. And for those of you that want to go for the on-campus accommodation here in Proby, in Blackrock, or in Belfield, which is not too far away, well, then you will need your student number. So it's crucial that you would send us all your documents, have your student number, and then the window for opening up the on-campus accommodation is in April. So I hope that answers your question. Another question coming in is about support services. So as I mentioned, we have excellent support services. You've got your own student advisor, international liaison officer, a program management team, our admissions team. So don't be worried. You'll be well looked after when you join us. And we're looking forward to your arrival, actually. We're getting all excited now. So we're expecting maybe 1,700 MSc students here in the Smurfit School. So 50% of our student population are international, coming from around 70 countries all around the world. So it's really exciting.
Carol, there's a question that's come up quite a bit on the Q&A there about scholarships, and I kind of touched on this a little bit, so I might just go ahead first, and sure, feel free if you have anything you want to add. So obviously there are scholarships, right, as I mentioned, although I would say the most important thing to do here is to go onto our website and have a look at the list of scholarships, because there are some that are specific to the program, there are some that are specific to the region that you might be coming from, etc., etc. So there's a lot about eligibility, but generally speaking, there's one or two major scholarships that we run. One's called the Global Excellence, another one's called the Academic Excellence. And these scholarships generally are based upon your academics. So in other words, they're merit based. So generally what you're coming into the school on. Now, the way that our scholarships generally, and this again, there are exceptions to this rule, are set up is that it does not reward, we don't use them to attract students here. And the main reason why is because we get so many top quality students from all around the world that want to come to study here. So unlike other schools, we don't need to offer out, 100% scholarships to try to get good students to come to us. They come to us anyway, which is sort of a good thing, I suppose, but it also means that there aren't as many scholarships that we offer. And the second thing about scholarships is that they generally are awarded in the summer. And this is my point. So it's rewarding students that are kind of coming to us anyway. And that's the kind of thing. So you have to nearly commit to coming to Smurfit and pay an acceptance deposit. And only then in usually July are results of all of our scholarships given. Now, again, there are exceptions to this, Carol, right? But generally speaking, my advice, which I said at the end of the presentation, stands, which really is that to make sure you can afford to do your program first. And if you can get a scholarship, treat it as a bonus. And I know there's some questions specifically in the Q&A there about, for example, the Government of Ireland scholarship, which I think the deadline closes on Friday. There are those. Now, that's not a UCD scholarship. That's a separate thing to us, but there are students who get those scholarships that come to us. So there's lots about scholarships, but really the rule of thumb, the main piece of advice, Carol, would you agree, is to hopefully try to fund your program as much as you can first?
Yes, no, I think you covered that very well, Richard. And, you know, some of the scholarship deadlines have already passed, and the decisions, as you mentioned, won't be out until during the summer. So, you know, I think what you should do is have a look on the website. We have lots of different types of websites, as Richard mentioned, for different majors, particularly if you're applying for some of our finance majors. You might decide that you want to do, you know, a GMAT test, or we have regional scholarships as well. Some of the scholarships you have to apply for, some of them are based on merit. So lots and lots of different options. So I suppose our website is excellent. It's very comprehensive. All the information that you need is on our website, to be honest. Very user-friendly. And as Richard mentioned earlier on, I think Unibuddy, Ask a Student function on our website is very beneficial. And I would encourage you all to chat to the current students and also to our alumni.
And on that note, all three of our students today on the panel, I believe, am I right, are on this. You might not know it as Unibuddy, but you'll see it on our website. It's called Ask a Student. If you go to, even just Google Smurfit, Ask a Student, it comes up, and Moses and Manby and Ciara represent their courses on it. And I'm sure you've had many conversations with prospective students, right? They're all nodding furiously. Exactly. Good.
Yeah.
It's one of the nice things, I think, isn't it? I think most of you guys, I mean, just actually of Moses, Manby and Ciara, just show of hands, did you use this last year, this facility, when you were coming to Smurfit? Did you reach out to talk to current students?
Unfortunately not, to be honest. I mean, I was just keen, you know, to reach out to you. Luckily, you gave me great assistance, great help, whatever questions I had regarding admissions or, you know, this is student life over here. But as for now, as being one of the student ambassadors, I believe I could help a few answer the questions, especially which course that you choose, because some of them sound alike, but there are very nuances that might differ and alter from another. So I believe it was quite helpful, and just, you know, just get in change with them. And I believe that this one is a very nice tool for also other prospect students.
Yeah, thanks, Moses. And I'll pay you later on for saying such nice things. I'm only messing.
There's another question coming in here, Richard, about applications for the fall of 2024. So just to let you know, this year and every year we receive around 8,000 applications coming in from students all around the world, as I mentioned earlier on. So we will be opening our online applications on the 1st of October this year. So, you know, I always encourage applicants to submit their online application as soon as possible, because it's amazing, because of the huge volume of applications that we receive. You know, you want to make sure, even if you meet the entry criteria, that you get your first preference. So we will be opening our online applications that will be on our website on the 1st of October 2024. And we look forward to receiving your applications then. Yeah.
Get in early, I think, is a part of it, because the way that we run our applications, again, generally, it's a excuse me, bad time for a cough, is that we do it on a first come, first served basis. So when the courses get filled, they get closed, and we don't know from year to year when that will be, because every year we get more and more high quality applications. They tend to close a bit earlier and earlier. I mean, I think, Carol, we've all been here long enough to know that even, say, 5 years ago, that you'd have courses that would be open all the way through into the summer nearly. And whereas now they're closing some of them in before Christmas, right? So it's if you are thinking seriously about applying for 2024, do get an application in day that we open if you want, but certainly that kind of first month or so that we open in October, I think would be one of the key messages.
There's a question coming in from Pratik. He applied for the Master in Management and he's been waiting quite a while for his decision. So it's important to remember to upload all your documents, your mark sheets, your consolidated mark forms, your IELTS test results, and make sure that you haven't left anything out. But, you know, if there is something missing, you're welcome to email smurfit.admissions@ucd.ie and we will have a look. I will actually have a look and see why you haven't received a decision on your application, Pratik. Is that okay? And then there's another question here around what is the procedure for getting a student number? So again, many of you will be currently in the final year of your undergrad studies. It's important to remember as soon as you receive your final academic transcripts or your mark sheets, that you upload the information to your online application as soon as possible. And if you have already met the English language requirements, once you have met all the conditions of your offer, you need to upload all your documentation and then we will update your offer once you've met the entry criteria to a full offer. Once you have your student number, then you can apply for accommodation. So if you're due to get your academic transcripts in June or July, once you have received this, please ensure that you upload to your online application as soon as possible, or alternatively, you can email your recruitment manager. For example, if you're from China, you can email Shay Smith. If you're from India or South Asia, you can email myself. From Europe, you can email Richard. Or if you're from Ireland, you can email Laura. Or alternatively, just email smurfit.admissions@ucd.ie and we'll come back to you very soon. Is that okay?
Carol, I think we've got about 3 minutes left. So let's do, I'm going to try to take some quick fire questions here, okay? And maybe you could take some and then we'll wrap this up in maybe 2 minutes. So last chance to get a question and get it in there quickly. There's a couple more questions in regards to accommodation. Just one other point to what you mentioned earlier, Carol. One thing I would say that we obviously can't, accommodation is such an important bit. We cannot answer all those kind of individual questions about accommodation now. But there are a lot of webinars specifically about accommodation that take place over usually, I think, is it from April? I think they start.
Yes.
There's actually a lot already. If you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see some from previous years. They're up online, presented by Yola. Not a lot has changed. There is a website called UCD Accommodation Pad, which is about finding accommodation, private accommodation that's connected with UCD. In other words, it's been kind of like verified or vetted by UCD. So there's lots of new things that have happened as well. But all of those things, I think, will be answered by specific presentations and webinars. So do keep an eye on our website for those as well. Let me see. Have you seen any of your sort of questions coming in there, Carol, that you want to maybe look at? Oh, there was one there just about can you stay and work? I mentioned in our presentation that Ireland has a 2-year stay back visa, right, Carol?
Yeah. So to be honest, you're guaranteed 2 years stay back. Having said this, because of our excellent rankings and accreditation, our graduates are high in demand. Many of our students are managing to secure really good jobs and internships shortly after they join us, and they're staying on for much longer than the guaranteed 2 years. Now, some students often ask us, oh, I need to work part-time to finance my studies, and that is allowed as well. Students are allowed work 20 hours a week. Again, there's a lot of information on our website. We have a fantastic career development team that will help our students get prepared. And job situation in Ireland is very good at the moment. The expected GDPR is 3.5%. So yeah, I suppose we will provide you with all the, equip you with all the skills that you need. Our dedicated career development team have excellent resources. And then, every year we host around 6 different career fairs. So we have many, many corporate partners. And as Richard mentioned earlier on, we have a very robust alumni network that will support you to find jobs as well. So check out all the videos and keep in touch with the career development team. Also, I suppose the communication process will kick off from the program management team. There's a lot of fantastic, very beneficial information on the student information portal. That's going to be updated on a regular basis. So very advisable to keep in touch with the student information portal on a regular basis, because it's going to be constantly updated between now and September, and you will be receiving a lot of emails from our colleagues and from your dedicated program manager going forward from now until when you join us. And we're so excited and can't wait for your arrival. It's really exciting time for us in admissions when we see all our students arriving on campus.
Yeah, it's one of the more rewarding parts of our job, Carol, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll say this, there was just maybe one last question there, or two quick last questions. There's a few about online, or can you do, if you're working, can you do a program remotely? Currently, our project management masters, which is a highly versatile and adaptable across nearly any sector of work program, and it's a phenomenal program led by a phenomenal academic director, Joe Houghton. That's our first program to go what's known as like truly online, so you can do it anywhere in the world if you need to. So that's the one course that we have that would specifically, there is an MBA modular which you can do, but you do need a little bit of attendance here in person. And I know someone else had mentioned, do we have MBAs? Yes, we have an MBAs, but this is an MSc webinar. But do check our website. So look, I hope that helps answer those questions. I think, is there any other last quick questions you've seen there, Carol, that you might want to check? I think that's pretty much it.
I think that's it. I think we've covered most of them. But for anyone who's interested in an MBA, you can contact our colleague Christine Higgins or myself or Richard as well.
Great. Well, look, I think it's just after 4 o'clock now here in Ireland, so I'll probably wrap this up now. So I want to say a massive thank you to the panelists, the student panelists, Manvi, Moses, and to Kira today for your really insightful words, and I hope that the students watching today took a lot out of that. Again, to plug it, you can talk to any of these 3 students and others. There's about 50 student ambassadors up on our website across all courses and a lot of different nationalities. So please reach out to the students. That's what you like, isn't that right, guys? Yeah. And obviously, if you can't or don't want to reach out to the students, reach out to us, right? So our main email, as I led on the presentation, smurfit.admissions@ucd.ie. It's up on our website, right? So do email the main Smurfit email, and then they will send it out to the individual admissions manager that would look after that particular region. I also want to say a massive thanks to Carol for joining us for the Q&A, and to my colleague Gillian in the background. And Alara, thanks to you. I might just pass this back to you. So thanks again for everyone watching. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Oh, please go ahead, Carol.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, you all, for the presentation, all the questions that you kindly answered, and your sharings. And for all the participants, after the event, you will receive an email with a link to the recording of the event, so you can watch it in case you missed anything. And also, I would like to thank all the participants for their time and for joining us today. I hope this webinar for you was useful for you, and we look forward to getting in touch with you again for our upcoming events with UCD. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.